The Imperial Guard, 3rd edition. Imperial Guard regiments. Cadian shock troops. Cadia is situated just to the galactic south of the Eye of Terror, in a region of space where the warp is peculiarly calm and easy to traverse. This area is known as the Cadian Gate, and is the route often used by the War Masters of Chaos to launch their devastating Black Crusades against the Imperium. The shock troops are often used to hunt down and eradicate Chaos incursions, and the level of training given to the planetary defense forces on Cadia means that they are a highly organized and efficient army. The planet has many weapon manufactoriums, and so Cadian armies are always well supplied. Most Cadians learn to strip a lasgun before they can read or write. Cadian shock troops wear a variety of uniforms, but the most common is a camouflage scheme based upon the wilderness areas of their home planet. Valhallan Ice Warriors. The Valhallans are a grim people, having known great hardship over the years. Valhalla was once a beautiful world with verdant plains and lush mountain valleys. However, not long after its rediscovery by the Imperium, Valhalla was struck by a comet. This catastrophe turned it into an ice world of blizzards that strip a man to the bone and temperatures that freeze blood in seconds. The few survivors rebuilt underground in massive subterranean cities. Valhalla began to recover, although it would forever be a shadow of its early glories. It was then that the orcs came, a ferocious green tide intent on conquest. Before long, the two sides were fighting bitter battles through the tunnels of the underground cities. After just 2 months of conflict, the Valhallans drove off the orcs just as they were about to overrun the food vats. If these had fallen, the Valhallans would have suffered a slow, starving death. The Valhallans are renowned for their tenacity, gladly throwing themselves into the fray to protect their fellow men. They have many armored vehicles for traversing the icy plains of their planet, and wear heavy coats and fur-lined boots to protect themselves from the deadly cold. Catachan Jungle Fighters. It is bizarre that anyone wants to live on Catachan. It is a death world in every sense, with steaming jungles, virulent diseases, and some of the deadliest predators that ever lived. Yet Catachans are proud of their origins, and claim to be the only real men in the galaxy. This could well be true, for the high mortality rate on Catachan ensures that only the strongest and most mentally determined survive. Catachans can fight open battles as well as any other Imperial Guard, but it is in jungle warfare that they truly excel. The jungle fighters can run rings around enemies floundering in swamps, and sneak unseen past the tightest enemy picket. They wear camouflaged combat fatigues, which are lightweight to stop heat exhaustion. Catachan has a fairly high gravity, and all Catachans are muscular and solidly built. They are often called baby ogrins by others, though never face. Mordian Iron Guard. Polite people call the Mordians dour. Everyone else calls them downright miserable. This is entirely understandable, as Mordia is a night world. Mordia does not rotate, and so one hemisphere is constantly bathed by the radiation of the local star, while the other is locked in a permanent night, its lack of rotation making it constantly hot and still, giving it a sultry, oppressive atmosphere. The Mordians live in massive ziggurat-like hive cities, and every day is a struggle for survival to eke out a living from the world's meager resources. To this end, Mordia is run by the Tetrarchs, who rigidly control every drop of water, every grain of food, and every scrap of clothing. As can be expected, not everyone sees the need for such authoritarian control, and there have been several uprisings in the past. The Mordian Iron Guard are similarly rigid, with a firm belief in their chain of command and the ability of their officers. The Iron Guard generally wear the deep blue dress uniform of the Mordian parade ground, believing that discipline and good combat drill are more important than skulking around in the bushes. Those who have faced the Iron Guard's devastating volley fire would probably agree. Talarn Desert Raiders. Talarn was not always the windswept desert world it is now. Before it was virus-bombed by the forces of Horus during the First Heresy, Talarn was a fertile agri-world. Even after it had become a disease-ridden hellhole, the forces of Chaos made huge efforts to conquer Talarn, but the Talarns fought back with burning hatred. Millions died, and the surface became so polluted that only armored vehicles could fight above ground. Talarn was the site of the largest tank battle in Imperial history, and more than 1 million wrecks littered the battlefield after the forces of Chaos were repelled. The Chaos Invaders returned when Talarn miners unwittingly discovered a massive warp gate known as the Cursus. Eldar from many craft worlds attacked to prevent the Cursus from opening, but were too late. Hordes of slavering chaos beasts poured from it, and it was only by combining their efforts that the Talarns and the Eldar finally destroyed them. The Talarns are expert at surviving in hot, arid conditions, and their camouflaged desert uniform protects them from the blazing sun. Attilan Rough Riders. Attila is a world of grassy plains, inhabited by barbarous horse tribes who are constantly fighting each other. There is great honor in warfare amongst the Attilans, and they are masters at riding, so they make excellent rough riders, though they can be somewhat headstrong on occasions. There have been whole Attilan regiments raised, but they usually fight in smaller formations as auxiliaries to standard regiments. The Rough Riders eschew formal uniforms and ride into battle wearing their traditional furs and long coats. Their only insignia is the Imperial Guard blazon, worn on a shoulder, and a branded skull motif distinctive to each squad on their horses. I, Lord Quandros, Silarian, do swear my utter and whole allegiance and devotion to the Emperor. I do take upon myself the mantle of Imperial Commander of the Emperor's realm, and to me shall fall a custodianship of the domain of the fourth world of the Landor system. To me also shall fall the protection of these domains, and as such I acknowledge my duty to raise such fleets and armies as are necessary to fulfill this duty. As commander of Landor 4, I shall make available to the hosts of the Emperor no less than 1 part in 10 of the armies of my realms for the prosecution of such wars as decreed by the servants of the Emperor, and as many of my soldiery as deemed necessary in times of extreme conflict or upheaval. In return, I may expect the full support of the offices of the Emperor in defense of my realm, should such a threat arise that mine own armies are insufficient defense. I swear that such men as are given over to the defense of realms other than mine shall bear arms and be equipped to fight, and that my domain shall stand ready with such engines of war and machineries as are needed by my armies, should the specter of war engulf us. I understand that in this matter it is I, and I alone, who holds the sole responsibility for this undertaking, and that, as Imperial Commander, if my armies shall be lacking or wanting in any regard that impairs their ability to defend this realm for the Emperor, I shall no longer be fit for lordship of the Emperor's domains, and shall risk summary execution for any neglection or dereliction in these most important duties, as decided by the lords of the Adeptus Arbites. I swear this upon my immortal soul with the Emperor as my witness. Long shall his hand guide us. Long shall his eyes watch over us. Long shall he take us unto him after death. Quandros Solarian. Commissars are recruited into the Departmento Munitorium from the Scala Progenium, the rigorous orphanages for families of adepts, run by the abbots of the Ministorum of Terra. Many serve in one of the highly elite stormtrooper regiments before becoming commissars, so they are no strangers to warfare and hardship. Every regiment has at least 1 commissar, and many large regiments have several, who remain with the regiment while it is deployed in a war zone. The chief task of the commissar is to preserve the fighting spirit and loyalty of the regiment he is overseeing. If discipline is lax, he will step in to reinforce it with whatever means he deems necessary. If the regiment's officers are incompetent or lack courage, the commissar must retrain and fortify them, or have them replaced by more loyal officers. If this is not an option, a commissar may disband a regiment and its forces will be dispersed to other commanders. If troops are troublesome, the commissar must keep order. A commissar knows that the best troops are the hardest to keep in line. He embodies strength, bravery, and loyalty, and serves as the ultimate example of human courage. Commissars have to be tough, vigilant, and resourceful. Some regiments are composed of savage gang fighters or vicious barbarians who are naturally antagonistic to authority. The loyalty of such troops must be earned, and the commissar must be prepared to demonstrate his courage in battle, if he is to command any respect from them. Like all good officers, commissars are fiercely loyal to the imperial creed embodied by the teachings of the ecclesiarchy. They love the emperor and desire nothing more than to serve him to the best of their abilities. They do not tolerate tolerate disloyalty and remain vigilant for spies, mutants, and agents of corruption that may have infiltrated the men under their charge. They are well versed in the Imperial scriptures and will frequently give readings before battle. Most of all, they despise the Emperor's enemies and want nothing more than the opportunity to crush the foe beneath the righteous heel of Imperial might. Dear Sebastian, well, we're finally here. Zero's world. From when I left the farm, it's been about 3 months, though it's hard to tell. What with traveling on a starship and everything. It took about 3 weeks to get the regiment mustered, and then we had to wait another week after that for the Navy to arrive with the transports. That's when we all swore our oaths to the Almighty Emperor to protect mankind and defeat our enemies. I don't know how many of us are in the regiment, but it took 2 whole days to shuttle us up, with 200 men to a shuttle, one every hour or so. Once we were on board, they split us up into training groups and gave out weapons and other kit. I've got my standard issue laser gun, made in the factories on Last Reach, but some of the lads from A Company have got a batch of laser guns from elsewhere. I think someone mentioned XXX FAL. Anyway, the guns are the same, but different as well. You can strip them down and clean them just the same, but their guns have a metal stock, ours is wooden. Theirs have got this fancy pistol grip, ours have just got a stubby handle. I guess it's because there's not much but wood on Last Reach, so the factories have to make do with what they can get. Anyway, whatever they look like, they work the same way. Point them at the enemy and pull the trigger. Our ship was the Pride of Lawrence, and to be honest, I didn't enjoy the journey that much. I shared a bunk room with the rest of my platoon, 50 of us in all, though of course the lieutenant was with the other officers on another part of the ship. It was cramped, and after a hard day's training it was a bit smelly. Not like the fresh air you were still enjoying. They worked us really hard. Marching drill before breakfast, then more drill and an hour on the firing ranges. The afternoon was hand-to-hand combat and wilderness survival. Of course, we've all been saying our prayers regularly too, with a proper service at the end of every day, before lights out. The chapel on board the Lawrence is bigger than the one at Homeward. I've never heard so many people singing hymns at once. It's really stirring to know that I'm part of this whole thing. It took about 2 months, I reckon, to get from Last Reach to here. And then another 2 days of shuttling down. I was worried, and then we have a censored portion. It says, because something said we might have to drop Ian right at the front line, but in the end we landed in a town where the main base is, south of the mountains here. As we got off the lighters, that's what the Navy calls shuttles sometimes, another regiment was getting on. I managed to talk to some of them, and they said they'd been fighting on Zaro's world for almost 10 years. These orcs don't give up easily by all accounts. We were their replacements. Apparently, they're allowed to go off and join one of the Crusades. They even get to settle a whole new world if they conquer one. Can you imagine that, being able to start your own settlement? I hope we do well enough to get a similar reward. Perhaps it'll be called Damek's World or Damek's Landing. That would be funny. The men leaving from Lorestian 4, and from what they said, that's a lot closer to Zaro's world than Last Reach. The lieutenant explained that the longer the war goes on, the further and further away from the world they have to go to get new recruits. Apparently, it's a hive world where there are huge cities full of millions of people in a really small space. And then we have another censored portion, which unfortunately I don't think I'm going to be able to read. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to read the censored portion. The Laurentians. Wait. I'm sorry, these people are called Lorcations. The Lorcations told me that they weren't the first here either, so this war was probably older than you are. I could tell they were glad to be off-world soon. There were only about 6 shuttles worth of them left. Still, the men I was talking to were proud to have fought the orcs, protecting the people of Zaro's world from the alien scum. When we marched through the town, I don't remember its name, there were people cheering us and everything, as if we'd already won the war. We all enjoyed that, and it's good to know that I'm going to fight for the Emperor. It was a bit strange, us marching one way with our new red uniforms and shining buttons and freshly painted tanks, while the Lorcations marched the other way, wearing muddy brown overalls with bits of bushes and other camos stuck in them. One of them joked about the before and after posters you get at chapels, the ones that show the man full of sin before confessional, then free and glad once he's paid his penance at the scourging rack. Well, drums are sounding the company muster, so I'd better get going now unless I want a quick turn at cleansing the privies, or even end up with a few strips off my back. I hope you get this letter, and remember to help Uncle Maximilian when the Grok's cull season starts. You know his back isn't as strong as it used to be. Take care of everyone for me, little brother, and keep me in your prayers at night. I miss the farm, but I'm glad that I'm here now doing something for the Emperor and for the people of Zaro's world. Keep up the hunting practice, and maybe when you're older you'll be able to join up too. I'm proud of you. Be proud of me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel.